Hello there, welcome back to London Live News with me, Anthony Baxter. It has gone 6 o'clock. The main story for you this evening: the Garden Bridge should be scrapped rather than risk uncertain costs. That is the finding of a damning review into the project by Dame Margaret Hodge, the London Labour MP who's brought in to examine the plans by the Mayor last September. Well, today she published her report, which highlighted spiralling costs, little progress on securing private funding, and questions around the way deals have been done. Luke Blackall is at Temple for us tonight. From this 40-page document, Luke, one might assess that the reality of the bridge becoming an actual bridge is slipping away.
I think that is a very sound assessment, Anthony. It's certainly looking a lot less rosy this evening. Of course, when it was announced to great fanfare, this 366-metre bridge that was going to cross the river just a few metres from where I'm standing and contain 270 trees and thousands of plants, was greeted with a huge amount of attention, not least by its celebrity backer, Joanna Lumley. But in the intervening months and years, that vision has unravelled with a growing opposition to the eye-catching project. So by the time that Sadiq Khan took office as new Mayor of London last year, it was one of the big issues in his inbox that he had to deal with. And so he appointed Dame Margaret Hodge to carry out this review. Here's our report on this review and the results it found out this morning. When Sadiq Khan asked Dame Margaret Hodge to report on the Garden Bridge project, he didn't ask whether she thought it was a good idea, but rather whether it was value for money and whether the commissioning process was fair. On both accounts, she said no. And in a 45-page document delivered this morning, she highlighted a number of issues. When it came to value, she pointed out that it was a project that started life costing £60 million, but would now likely cost £200 million. She also highlighted profound funding gaps and pointed out that the project had already used £37.4 million of public funds. The conduct and procedural processes of both TfL and the Greater London Administration also came in for criticism. Commenting on her report this morning, Dame Margaret added that it would be difficult to justify further public investment in the bridge and suggested it would be better to cut losses now rather than risk more costs to the taxpayer. Before making any decisions, Sadiq Khan says he will now carefully consider the findings, which one London Conservative politician said were politically motivated. But for these London Assembly members I spoke to, the writing is on the wall for the plans.
Huge questions have to be asked when you see nothing has been built yet 37 million has already been spent. But if we're saying it's going to cost over 200 million to build, we're then talking about the annual maintenance costs, and there's no one at the moment to pay for those. And what the Mayor is being asked to do is to underwrite those, to basically say the London taxpayer will underwrite that and pay for that for years and years to come. That could cost tens and tens of millions of pounds. I don't think that's good value for money, and I think it's time the Mayor put us all out of our misery and scrap this project.
There needs to be clarity and accountability on these things. We need this Mayor to be focusing on the good bridges, the bridges that actually will help people to make their journeys on foot and by bike. There's a fantastic bridge just up the river up here, which is ready to go. It's got planning permission, not had a penny of public money spent on it so far, and it would cost less than 30 million. You know, we need good bridges that actually get people across the river rather than these vanity projects like the Garden Bridge.
In response to the report, Lord Davis, chair of the Bridge Trust, said it will be examined in detail, adding the Trust remains as determined as ever to make the Garden Bridge happen, which will bring huge benefits to London and to the UK. Those behind it may say that they remain determined, but given the words in Sadiq Khan's own report, as well as the growing weight of opposition from seemingly all sides, for him to then turn around and say he would support the crossing might well seem like a bridge too far.
Luke Blackall there for us on the banks of the Thames. Well, let's stay with this story for now. Wai King Chung is from Thames Central Open Space, which has campaigned against the bridge. She says much of what was in today's report was already known.
We think that Margaret Hodge has done Londoners a great service in going through a very thorough and robust independent review of this project. She's come up with conclusions that we could have predicted anyway, which is that the whole project is a bad idea and it's been poorly procured, the consultation's been almost non-existent, particularly with the local communities, and that it should ultimately, what she's saying, it should be scrapped.
The chairman of the trust has welcomed the report, but also says that the trust is as committed as ever to the bridge going ahead. Will it now take someone perhaps like the mayor to step in to sort this out and to take it to the next step?
Well, he can't scrap it alone per se. He can refuse the £3.1 million guarantee that the Garden Bridge Trust requires in order to get the thing off the ground, but he can also withdraw support for the bridge, which I'd be very surprised if he didn't do, given this very damning report. And I'm really shocked that Lord Davis still thinks that it's a good idea to plough on with this. It's not very charitable of the Garden Bridge Trust in order to get that project on the ground. It's bordering on brinksmanship. I don't think that they should be carrying on pushing this over to the edge so that we lose even more money. It's scandalous that it's got this far already.
Yeah, we'll talk about the money and the taxpayers' money in a moment, but say the bridge and the trust manage to find private investors who are interested in being involved. The mayor has said before he doesn't want to see that money go to waste. Do you think, therefore, it would go ahead if that was the case?
I really don't think so. I'm very sceptical that anyone would come up with that kind of money. We're talking over £100 million. The bridge is now rumoured to be over £200 million to construct, and also the funding for the ongoing maintenance costs. I can't imagine who would be foolish enough to commit that kind of money privately to an enterprise that is wholly unpopular and is becoming very embarrassing. I think that the mayor does have it in his power to do something about that and to make good all the wrong procurement and the consultation or lack of. He has the power to, in effect, withdraw support for the bridge.
60 million of taxpayer money has been invested into this. It seems that a lot of people have focused on waste and potential waste. Who is really responsible for that? Who should have perhaps said no to this earlier on in the process?
At the very beginning, even the Margaret Hodge review says that TfL should have gone through proper procedures, that the board should have been kept very much on top of things. They weren't told anything. They were kept in the quiet. Things were done rather covertly behind closed doors, whether it was trips to San Francisco with Thomas Heatherwick on the quiet. These revelations only came about a few years later, 2 or 3 years down the line. They should have looked at it more carefully, and they should have been more accountable. And just saying that it was a mayoral directive that made them push these things through, well, that's not good enough. Mayoral directives don't overcome European or British laws on procurement. I do think that Sadiq Khan needs to take a review, a root and branch review of reform at TfL. These things can't happen again. It shouldn't have happened in the first place.
There we go. Those are thoughts of Wai King Chung, who is from Thames Central Open Space, which has actively campaigned against the Garden Bridge.